Hi, I'm Darren Harbour and today I'm going to talk to you about Canon's newest camera, the 1D Mark IV. Anyone's not aware of what this camera does and what makes it so special? Here's a clue. 10 frames a second. That's one of the fastest digital SLRs that's currently available on the market. It achieves this by having two Digic 4 processors which allow the camera to be able to shoot that fast. Very impressive. There's a lot more to it rather than just the fast performance, however. The camera has a completely all-new AF system, and this has been redesigned following some concerns and issues with the Mark III model, which some of you may have been aware of. Now, we'll come back to that in a bit more detail later, but a couple of other top-line things which are worth mentioning. The ISO performance on this camera sensitivity range now is from 100 to 12,800, but you can expand that down to 50 at the lower end and up to 102,400 at the top end. Yes, it is very noisy at 102,400 ISO. However, if you need to get a shot when you've got no other choice but to ramp the ISO up, it's an option and it's there. The sensor in this camera, it's an APS-H sensor, which is between an APS-C and a full frame sensor. It gives you a 1.3 crop. They've come up with a clever design that actually enables it to be as good in terms of quality, but deliver more pixels for the size of sensor. So that's good news. So let's go back to that autofocus system. First thing that's probably worth mentioning about the autofocus is looking at the back of the camera, you'll see the array of focus points. There's 45 focus points on this camera. That's a lot. Not as many as some other brands. For example, the Nikon's got slightly more. However, what's key is there's 39 cross-type sensor points, which allow you to get a much more accurate focus because they look at vertical and horizontal contrast. Delivers a much more fine-tuned performance when using an f2.8 lens or actually some f4 lenses on this particular camera, which is again unusual. Fine-tuning is a key word here actually, because going into the custom functions, and if I just select custom functions onto the back of the camera here, autofocus drive, there's a number of things that you can set on this camera to get it so it's exactly right for the subject you're shooting. Now, that's quite a complicated situation, so there's a book available which you can download, PDF from Canon, which is all about setting the custom functions. I'll just show you, for example, a page here. This talks about the slow and fast tracking. Now, actually on the screen of the camera, I've got that menu displayed. Slow, for example. If you want something which is tracking slow, what that means is that it's not going to go hunting around for another subject. So if you're following it, it will stick with it. If you go to the opposite end of the scale, fast, what fast will do is means it's constantly adjusting the focus, and therefore if something does appear in the frame, it will switch to that and hunt for that instead. You can also change, for example, active focus points. So if you've selected one of the focus points, let's just go back. If I press the focus point on the back of the camera, we've got the array screen come back up again. If I was to select, for example, these focus points here to the left-hand side of the screen, 2 focus points on this particular setting, then what I can do is in the custom function menus, I can select a setting which will allow me to enable surrounding AF points. Now that's brilliant for actually fine-tuning a focus, because if you are following a subject and it's moving around and it goes slightly off the focus point you've selected, then what you don't want is the camera to then start hunting. So what the camera does, it says, well, okay, it's come off the center point you wanted, but I know it's still there, I can see it's still there, and I'll continue tracking it with just one off to the side until you reposition the camera with the focus point over, and that will take over again. So again, it's about fine-tuning and getting a much more accurate focus. There's a whole variety of different settings you can change in this camera, and this is where this book comes in really handy. It will allow you to understand what each of those custom functions does and get the most out of this camera. Talking about getting the most out of it, we took it out, we gave it a thorough test, and we thought, well, what's an ideal subject? So we got a guy on a mountain bike. Now, this camera not only achieves very accurate focus, not only takes pictures very quickly, it achieves very accurate exposure, it does everything you possibly could ask for from an action camera. It is quite mind-blowing actually, and therefore certainly a camera which I'm very interested in as a Canon owner myself. So this is the Canon 1D Mark IV, £4,200 for a camera which delivers absolutely everything you possibly could ask from an action camera. It's got a great focusing system, it delivers speed. It's certainly worth the money, although clearly you'd have to either have a big bank balance or have a very practical reason for owning it if you're going to go out and buy one. Either way, it's certainly a camera I'd recommend.